Hi everybody, this is going to be a video talking about how to make block letters. So we are going to start with the basics today, but the end product looks something like this. This is my last name. I added some color, I added some detail with the shadowing, but this all comes from some basic steps that we are going to be working through together right now in our sketchbooks. So the first thing that I want y'all to do is take your ruler, okay? And we're gonna make some 2-inch sections, okay? So by that I mean I'm going to take my piece of paper in my book and I'm going to take my ruler and I'm gonna go from the top. I'm gonna mark 2 inches, okay? And you should have a little dot. And then you're just gonna kind of eyeball, okay, what's straight across? What does that look like? Something like that. And then you're going to draw a line across. Okay, so that section is 2 inches. You're going to do that a couple more times. So I'm going to go from this new line, I'm going to measure down 2 inches. I'm going to make a mark. There's your mark. And then I'm going to draw a line straight across using that mark. You should end up, ooh, that one was a little crooked. It's fine. Doesn't matter too much. But you should end up with about 4 sections. That one was better. I need to fix this one a little bit because that was just not right. There we go. That's better. All right. And then we're going to do one more down here. Okay. Boom. And then we're going to draw straight across like this. And this is going to be our practice zone, okay? So we're going to start with the basics, right? So I'm going to write an easy word. Remember, these pages are pretty short, so we're looking for like a 3 to 4 letter word here. So I am going to write the word art, okay? So I'm going to use my line that I made here as kind of my bumper, and I'm going to draw these pretty big in this section like that. Okay, so there are my letters for art, and we're going to start over here with the A. All right, I am going to use a pen to show y'all initially how to do this, but you should just be following along with a pencil, okay? So when I go to make my block letter, I'm going to be turning this letter into a block letter. You can either take your ruler, or if you trust your hand, you can do that too. But we're going to be making kind of a rectangle around each of these lines here. So I'm going to start here, okay? And I'm going to make a straight line on one side of this line on the A, or let's see, what would we call that? Like a leg, perhaps? And then a line on the other side, like that. So there's 2 lines on each side, okay? I'm going to take another color to show y'all the next step, okay? I'm going to go to this line now, right here on the other side, and I'm going to make a straight line on one side, and then I'm going to make a straight line on the other side. So that outlines this line right here. And then let's use pink for the last one. And then I'm going to go for this middle, we call this a bar right here. And I'm going to outline that bar. Okay, so the last step here, and I'll do that in a purple, is to make these, I don't know, caps, walls, whatever you want to call them, but just closing off those ends. And then you can take your pencil and erase those middle lines, and you're left with a block letter. Obviously, if you're using pencil, these extra little lines here and here won't show up, but since I am using pen for this initial step, just to show y'all what it looks like, mine are still there, okay? So again, I'm going to do this again with this R, okay? So I'm going to start with my, what did I use first? My red, okay? And I'm going to do a line on one side of this R like this, And then I'm going to do a line on the other side of the R like that, okay? And then I'm going to do a line on this side of this leg of the R, and then a line on the other side of the leg, okay? And then the last step, this part's tricky, right? Because we haven't done a curved line yet. So you just kind of have to wing this one on your own, but you're going to do a line on the inside of this line, and then a line on the outside. Again, we're just outlining each section, okay? And then I'm going to do that last step of drawing those lines and coloring, or not coloring, covering up those gaps, okay? And then again, I can erase the middle lines, and I'm left with a kind of block letter. Let me do it one more time with this T, and this time I won't use the pencil, just so y'all, or the pen, just so y'all can actually see what I'm talking about. So, first step is that red, so I'm going to add a line on one side of this bar, and then a line on the other side, like that. And then I'm going to add a line at the top, right here, on one side of this T, and then a line on the other side of the T. And then I'm going to do that last step with the purple pen of closing off the gaps. And then I'm going to erase the middle lines. Boom. Just like that, and you can see that that actually made a solid block letter, okay? We talked a little bit about how graffiti artists, taggers, like to use tags as a way to show their name or their nickname, okay? So maybe for this next one I do JK. Maybe you can do your initials. So I'm gonna add a J. We're just gonna practice this one more time. Whoops. Graphite broke. I'm gonna add a J and then a K. And you can play around with the thickness of letters. So check this out. I gave myself a little bit more space here. And I can really add, ooh, I should make this a little shorter if I want to make it thick. Like that, so it's not hitting this bar down here quite as much. Okay. But I can really add some thickness to these letters if I want to. So I can add the bar at the top of the J, and maybe I don't add the other bar until all the way down here, right? And then I go down the J and then curve back up, and then down the other side and curve back up, making those outlines, right? And then I can do the same thing over here with the K using my ruler or freehand, whatever you're most comfortable with. Okay. And then I'm adding those caps, right? And then erasing the middle part, like that. And then boom, you've got your own letters. And you can, I can outline this so it's easier to see on the screen. There we go. Boom! There's my block letters, okay? So, there's a variety of things that we can do with these, okay? And I'm just gonna play around down here and show y'all what I mean by that. But the idea here is that you're gonna continue practicing 2 more times, adding those outlines, okay? And then erasing, adding the caps, making some clean block letters, playing with the thickness of the bars. These are all called bars. Okay, playing around with the thickness of those, the height, the lowercase, the uppercase, and then you can keep playing around, okay? And I'm gonna show y'all what this can look like when you add some extra details. So I'm gonna do my first name, which is Jordy. And I can kind of freehand this. So I'm just gonna boom, 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 boom. And notice that I'm playing around with how thin and how thick things are. And then maybe I want the eye on this side out. And maybe it's lowercase and I give it like a punchy star here, right? On the top. And then I can go in, maybe this one's a heart. Maybe this one is like a, maybe another star. And then this O could be a flower. Obviously, I'm adding my own personality to this. You don't have to do stars and rainbows and hearts and flowers. But then maybe I can turn, I don't know, maybe I can make an outline around this. Go bam, 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 bam. And the cool thing about using pencil and working with graffiti is there's no real rules, right? So maybe I take the end of this R here and I swoop it around and I turn it into this I right here, right? Or let's see, maybe there's drips coming off of this O here. Ooh, that's not a good drip. Maybe there's like a drip coming off here. And I can show y'all how to do that if you would like to see that. Maybe there's an arrow coming off of this J here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. You can do a million things with this, okay? And then you can outline it, polish it, and turn it into a more clean, finished product. But this is what I want y'all to be doing right now. I want you to start with the basics, okay? Work through all 4 of these using block letters only. And then maybe play around with like, how can I make this more exciting? How can I play with the thickness of things? How can I play with the uppercase and lowercase of things? We call that the case. How can I add some symbols to represent me, right? So play around, have some fun with it, and then we'll talk more about embellishments.